height. And the urn was an old urn. And in putting the cow lilies in there, I felt they were somewhat of a historical flower and an elegant flower. And all the old photographs, especially even looking at my grandmother's old wedding album, she had cow lilies. And I think that they just remind me of a flower that was around a lot in the 1918s, and I could see it here in Madam Walker's home.
Yes, I think they're a nice tribute to Madam Walker. The armoire is very handsome.
Thank you. I had that custom made for the room. It's made out of walnut, solid walnut. Because it's such a large piece, it's over 7 feet tall, I didn't want it to appear too massive, so I found antique glass to front the cabinet with. And I think that also adds intrigue to what's behind it. Inside, I arranged some hats and hat boxes, and really whatever collection you would have had in there. It just adds some interest.
Tell me about the chandelier.
The chandelier is probably the only original piece that I have in this room. But I didn't hand it. I added the medallion to it. The shades I added, and they're the same string shades that are on her dressing table. And at night, it looks very nice with the light just streaming through the string shades. It's a lovely chandelier.
It's interesting that she spent her whole business life encouraging other women to find their own beauty, and she was very successful at doing that. How nice that you've created a room for her personal pleasure and for her to find her own beauty.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. From quiet, private spaces like the garden room and this lovely boudoir, to a room designed for an active family. That's up next on Designing for History, the Madam Walker Show House. Time magazine has named Madam Walker as one of the 100 most influential business leaders of the 20th century. She was also commemorated with a United States postal stamp in 1998.
Madam Walker was clearly a woman ahead of her time, not only as a successful businesswoman and millionaire, but as a philanthropist. She once said, "My object in life is not simply to make money for myself or to spend it on myself in dressing or running around in an automobile. But I love to use a part of what I make in trying to help others."
It seems only fitting that Madam Walker's spirit of giving remain a legacy long after her death. So appropriately, the show house has a beneficiary, the United Negro College Fund. One of the designers involved in this project has directly benefited from this organization. Amani Thorpe is a UNCF scholarship winner. Amani, Madam Walker said that this house was her dream of dreams. It must be somewhat of a dream for you to work on this project, design this beautiful room.
Absolutely it was. Madam Walker, I believe, was a woman of elegance, of culture and sophistication. I believe this room really reflects that.
Let me ask you this. In this house, we have two currents meeting directly. The past, all that wonderful rich history, and the present, because the Doleys live here with their son, and so you had two elements to unite. Is this design more a part of the past or a part of the present?
Well, I think it is a part of the present in that, I mean, it is a current media center. The elegance of the room, I think, really shows itself from the past. It really brings her elegance and culture to the room. Though it has a little bit of grit underneath, which is exactly what she came from.
You had a big space to work in, but it feels very cozy. How did you accomplish this feeling?
Well, one thing I wanted to do was have a family room that could handle all the responsibilities that a family would need it to handle. So my primary focus was to bring in a bunch of different activities. What I did was map out the room and identify 4 separate areas, and the room dictated some of that. There's an area where the workspace is divided from the game table space, which is separated naturally by a radiator cover, of all things. Then the fireplace creates another focal point where I made an intimate, cozy, kind of reading, cuddling section.
I see.
Then the nexus really of the room is where there's a pinnacle from the dormers. So in that space, I wanted it to be very cozy, lots of life.
So that's where the largest seating area is?
Yeah.
Was it a challenge being in a room with these sharp angles? It's not a regular ceiling.
Not at all. In fact, it was a great challenge. When I first saw the room, I fell in love with it for that reason, because it wasn't a box. It was an odd-shaped room just in the floor plan, and then the ceilings are very unexpected. Even an attic ceiling that's just got normal dormers in two directions is one thing, but this ceiling juts out in all bunch of different directions that are really quite unexpected.
So how did you work that to your advantage?
Well, for one, I wanted to create that also in design. I wanted to have the design be unexpected as well. I also put things askew on an angle. For instance, the seating area in front of the fireplace is kind of haphazardly almost off the carpet, which gives it kind of that, again, that kind of angled feeling.
You did some unique things with lighting in this room. I'd like to hear about how you chose the lamps and other details on the lighting.
Well, the only fixtures that are original to the room were the ceiling fixtures, so that really left out a lot of opportunity to add some lamps into the room, and a necessity, in fact. The original fixtures were bare bulbs, so to soften that, I put shades on them. The lamps, the table lamps and the floor lamp, they're all different. I didn't make a pair. I mean, that again adds to the eclecticism of the room. Not so matched, not stiff.
This corner of the room is very interesting with the lighting that you chose.
It's a way to lengthen the room in spots that would have been dead. In order to illuminate the corners there in a beautiful manner, I put the lamp inside of a vase.
Wonderful. Well, the vase reminds me of probably what's the most dominant feature in this room design-wise, and that is this eclectic cultural mix. Can you tell me how you came up with that?
It is a very big multicultural mix. There are Roman influences, for instance, in the bookends on the sofa table, and the acanthus leaf motif on those bookends. Also, African influences. You find those in the watering vessels underneath the sofa table. And there are some Japanese influences and Chinese influences in some of the pottery and the furniture, and also American influences. In the arts and crafts movement, there was a lot of pieces drawn from that movement. So Frank Lloyd Wright is definitely an inspiration for this room.
You know, Amani, I can't help but think that if Madam Walker could look down at us at this very moment, that she would be very proud of you and thrilled to think that in some way she was part of your inspiration. It's a stunning tribute to a very special woman. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Today, Madam Walker's home has undergone an amazing design transformation. But what has happened to the original furnishings in this palatial home? The answer is coming up next on Designing for History, the Madam Walker Show House.
For questions or comments, please write to Designing for History, the Madam Walker Show House, care of HGTV, Box 50970, Knoxville, Tennessee, 37950. Be sure to include your daytime phone number. Villa Lewaro stands as a monument to Madam C.J. Walker's success and her contribution to our society and to our history. Even today, those who see it and enter its doors can appreciate how hard it must have been for an African-American woman to build this mansion with all its grandeur in the early part of the 20th century. Unfortunately, all that's left is the magnificent home itself.
Because of the Great Depression, there was a huge auction at Villa Lewaro 11 years after Madam Walker's death. Her lavish possessions, the best of furniture, one-of-a-kind paintings, fine china, Persian rugs, Aubuchon tapestries, were all sold at extremely low prices. When it was over, the auction's final take was reported around $78,000 for furnishings and accessories that had cost in excess of $350,000. Today, the design transformation of the show house has recreated Madam Walker's original dream for her home on the Hudson. Madam Walker's impoverished beginnings as the child of ex-slaves made her empathetic to others, and as a result, the more she acquired, the more she shared. Her home was open to the famous and celebrated, but the humble were not excluded. She built Villa Lewaro as much for her own personal enjoyment as to inspire other African Americans to achieve and to succeed. Madam Walker dreamed it would forever be a gathering place for the best and the brightest. And today her dream is once again being realized. I'm Joan Cohn. Thanks for watching.